Hey guys, welcome to another review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the newest episode of Fear the Walking Dead, Season 2, Episode 9, Los Muertos, or something like that. To be honest, this episode was not the worst. It's not as bad as the previous episode, but I don't feel like it's one of the best episodes. It is completely boring. There are some good sort of spots in it, like very select few, and overall not much. So let me talk about the good points first. To start out, I think the ending is pretty good, having not the part with Nick. That part is terrible, but the ending with Madison and Strand and they're surrounded, that was interesting. I feel like there wasn't enough of that. I do have my complaints about how they did that, but it was interesting, so I'm going to put that in the good parts section, or the highlights section, or whatever you want to call it. The sacrifice, I feel like, is interesting, while at the same time, again, more complaints towards that. It is stupid and all, but I'll get into that later. It was interesting that they have this whole bus system where they've got a walled-off area with a bunch of walkers in it, and they send people down the bus to go kill themselves. It is interesting, but yeah. Okay, and then the zombies falling, I found that comedic. I found that very funny. It's just, you see them falling behind everyone, and they're so stupid that they've been making all this noise that attracts them. I found that to be interesting, so that's sort of good. And then just some select, very small things, like the guy who's bitten. I think that's an interesting thing for us to try and figure out. Was he actually bitten by a walker? What were the circumstances? Did you figure out that you could cut off a part of the skin where the walker's bitten and you won't get the infection, or is he immune, something like that? So that's kind of interesting there. Overall, though, there's not much interesting stuff in this episode, and that's basically all of the highlights of the episode that I just said there. Everything else is meh. So to start out, I'm going to be taking this in sections, so we're going to start out with Nick's story, and then we're going to go to Madison and her group's story. So, Nick wakes up in that hospital room. It's old lady coughing up blood over there, and he just wanders outside until he sees this whole setup where they're people crying. He sees a little girl, and the way that this guy acts around kids, I find it creepy. He's a little too clingy-ish. It's he picks up the little girl and she wants off immediately, and you sort of get the feeling he's a pedophile. I know he's not a pedophile, or not supposed to be a pedophile. I don't know if the actor is actually a pedophile, but you kind of get that vibe from him. Just anytime he hangs around kids, it's creepy. You get that creeper feeling from him. Remember in, I believe it was Season 2, Episode 2, he was hanging around those kids, and just it was completely awkward and cringeworthy. That's sort of how I feel when he's around kids, and this felt weird to me again. But, other than that, this scene is done rather okay with him watching, and he doesn't want the little girl to see. If this was a different actor, I feel like this scene would have been done a lot better, and he would be more likable in it for not wanting the little girl to see what was going on and all, but yeah, whatever. Moving on from there, Nick just he's wandering about, and then he gets drafted by the girl, Lucy, who I think they will have a love interest thing going on there, and then she needs him to go get water with them. And of course they cover themselves in blood, so we won't have to worry about any walker attacks in a walker show. When you have zombies in a show, and then you eliminate any trouble that you will have with the zombies, you immediately create a very boring aspect there. In The Walking Dead, they knew that if you did too much of the covering yourself in this for protection thing, it would wear out. And every time they did that, they made sure there was a reason for them not to want to do that, because it's risky. The zombies can pick up on a smell very easily. You don't want to risk it very much, and they always had to cover themselves in a lot, and this is just here's a little blood, I'm good. And then they slice the walker's throat and just start shooting out blood and stuff. Really? I know they're in The Walking Dead even, they bleed a lot more than a corpse should, but still, when you cut something that's dead, it's not going to pour out blood. Even if someone's alive, you're not necessarily going to pour out enough blood for you to smear all over yourself. I don't know. It's just very, very odd. It's bad directing, bad writing, whatever. It's all that. which we're used to at this point. Okay, moving on from there, they walk and talk for an endless amount of time, it seems, or at least it did to me, because this episode felt like it was double its runtime. It just felt very long. Then they get to that place, which this place was actually interesting, but I don't feel like they showcased it enough. It had huge potential. They go to this place where they have to make a trade. It's very dangerous, risky stuff, and these people have the grocery store set up where you could see what's going on here. It would be cool if you get to see them shopping around the stuff, but they sort of gloss over it, which kind of leads me to that point that I made in my previous review, that the writers just want to get everyone from point A to point B. They don't really care about showing and expanding the world or anything. It's just, we got to get them here to there, write the in-between and get them there. That's not good. That's not the way you write a show, and that's not the way that people enjoy seeing a show. Okay. Anyway, they get that stuff, but he ends up stealing something because he's an idiot. You're supposed to only fill up the cart and move on, which he could have just stuck it in the cart. There was plenty of room from what I've seen. But he doesn't do it. He hides in his back pocket, nearly gets his arm chopped off, and now he's causing trouble between these two groups because he's an idiot. They should not have brought this weirdo, druggy idiot along on this trip, which is highly dangerous and could be quite crucial. But anyway, they believe they're getting followed, and then they decide to go directly home instead of make a detour, try and shake whoever might be following them. Instead, it's like, we're being followed, you know. This is your fault. You shouldn't have gotten me into this. Okay, let's go directly home. No problem there, right? That's very stupid. I mean, they kind of did that in the Star Wars movies, so it's acceptable to a certain degree. But when everything in this episode is stupid and everything throughout the previous seasons is stupid, you start to get the idea that the writers are just stupid. And every character in this episode, at least, if not throughout the entire seasons, they act completely retarded. Like, no boundaries, just very, very stupid. They do the dumbest things, and they don't act like real people would. Either these characters are actually supposed to be the dumbest bastards on Earth, or the writers are really bad. You make the choice. Okay, anyway. After that, Nick heads back with her, and then he gets cussed at again, like by authority figures telling him he shouldn't do this or that. And we find out about that guy's bitten shoulder, which, honestly, I think that it's not a zombie bite, but if it was, maybe it, ripped out and caused the skin around it to tear off with him, and that wouldn't cause the zombie's teeth to actually have punctured there, maybe, I don't know. Possibly, if it was a walker, I can't think of many other things. I don't think it's an immunity, though, because in The Walking Dead, they have not established an immunity to zombie bites, and I don't think they will, because Robert Kirkman doesn't seem to care about that stuff too much, so I don't think he would delve into that. Okay, anyway, after that, that's basically it with Nick, so we move on to Maddie. They run into that, I guess they were going back to the Abigail, but it says, there was something written in the sand that says, Abigail lost, head north. I don't know who wrote that. I guess that was Travis, maybe? I don't know, I just don't remember that. Then there's a bunch of talking in between and a bunch of talking afterwards, but there are some small pieces that are worthy of mentioning that they talked about. I'll get to that in a second. They head to this hotel, they act completely weird, and they talk a lot, and then Alicia has some drama with her mom because she wants to go off and do stuff by herself and be a big girl, and her mom doesn't. Very annoying, but I feel like of these characters, I'm starting to think that Alicia might be the most acceptable, because so far she hasn't done anything completely retarded. She's done stuff that you would expect a teenage girl to do. She hasn't really done stuff that you'd expect Travis to do, which is very stupid. She hasn't done some sort of Nick-style, just no boundaries, stupid thing. So maybe Alicia is going to be a good character. Ophelia, maybe her as well, but every other character, they're gone. Anyway, Maddie and Strand get drunk. They drink endlessly, which is the dumbest thing to do in a Walker apocalypse, and they get themselves screwed over. But first off, we do hear that, well, first we know that Maddie is a Southern Belle now. I don't know why that matters. she's regretful about having her kids, so she's a bad mother, and she doesn't want her kids anyway, so she's raised them to be crap, and she doesn't care. She wishes that they didn't exist. She's just, the more we see of her, the more terrible it is. I feel like if they want her to be likable, they would not have done that, because that makes her even less likable now. And if you heard Rick say, like, Coral, I hate you and I wish you were never born, that would not have helped. You would not have liked Rick had he done that. Or if he told someone else that he wished he never had Carl, that would be, like, just annoying. And, well, that's what this character is. She's a bad mother, so that's what we get. And then Strand told her that he'd hit on her, basically. I don't know, he might be bisexual, it seems. It just, because he's saying he'd, like, hit on anyone and stuff like that, so maybe he is, maybe he's not. We'll find out. Find out in the next episode about this guy's sexual orientation. That's what you get in this Walker Apocalypse. Okay. After that, there's basically nothing interesting. They make noise and smash stuff, and then there's like 20 minutes of boredom until we get to the end, where suddenly zombies are falling from everywhere and they're surrounding the place because these stupid idiots are playing the piano, smashing glasses, and frickin' talking out loud. They're causing themselves to be heard by, like, everything. And they end up surrounded, and they're behind the bar, which, with all the alcohol that they've consumed, I'd imagine you would not be able to fight walkers, nonetheless stand up straight. They should be falling all over the place. That would be a good way to have some humor and then kill off some characters, maybe. But that's not going to happen, because that would be interesting. What they're probably going to do is just, in the next episode, wrap all that up real fast, which will suck, and it'll just be boring, and that's what we'll end up with. But it does seem interesting. It's potential, and they are showing an awful lot of interesting stuff in this last part here, not with Nick, but she's surrounded, and then Alicia's up there. We don't know what's going on with Ophelia. There is slight chance that the next episode may be good, as long as they don't end up escaping, heading to a closet, and then talking for another hour. That's probably what we will end up with, though. So, I didn't like the cliffhanger perfectly, but I feel like it does give potential for the next episode. And my ranking for this episode is probably like 5, I'm going to say it's a 4 out of 10. Perhaps a 4.5 out of 10. It's not completely awful for their standards. It's, almost halfway. So anyway, guys, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Tell me what you thought about this episode, or even the whole entire season so far. And make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I will see you guys in the next review.